history.
There you are. You were live.
Yay! The third Maya calendar, known as the long count, measured time in cycles of 394 years, or 144,000 days.
The long count is really just like an odometer in your car. It just ticks off days. It counts 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 144,000, which we call black count.
You gonna call those yet?
Also measured time.
Yeah, I did. I didn't want anybody to, but I mean.
Totaling 5,125 years.
There you go.
According to scholars, the dates stretch from August 11th, 3114 BC to December 21st, 2012. And there, inexplicably,
So 2012 was the end.
it stops. Why were the Maya tracking celestial events in cycles of over thousands of years? Was it simply, as some scholars suggest, because they could? Or did they, as ancient astronaut theorists believe, create the calendar as a way of marking time until the return of otherworldly visitors? Beings that were believed by them to be gods.
Those calendar systems from the Mayans today, science has no idea about what they are based on. But we should know that they exist for a specific reason. So it is clear that they were given to the.
All right, Mika is on her painting channel now on YouTube.
And so
You guys want to go check her out?
what we are seeing is that the Mayans are working with tools, technology, like calendar systems, which were specifically engineered because they had been told that when certain things in the sky look a certain way, that the gods would return.
The Mayans were incredible at what they did. The big question is, how did they know this? You have to say to yourself, perhaps civilizations might be much older than we think, and they passed down knowledge for
Here's
hundreds
Jamaica
and
now.
hundreds of thousands of years, or somebody came down and taught them. Did the Maya create the long count calendar to warn us of a deadly cataclysm? Or were they simply intending to inform us of the day which will signal the return of their gods? But who or what were these gods? And what is their agenda? According to ancient astronaut theorists, the answer can be found in the stars. Tikal, northern Guatemala. Located within the dense tropical jungles of Central America, this archaeological site was once one of the great urban centers of the Mayan civilization. Here, along the Grand Plaza, the Maya built 7 pyramid-shaped temples aligned to mimic the constellation Pleiades. They called it the Seven Sisters because it consisted of 7 bright stars. They also believed that Pleiades was at the center of all 3 stars. So when they looked at the Pleiades, they believed that that may have been the center of all creation, and they believed that they came from the center of that creation, or simply put, they came from Pleiades.
Why would the Mayans go through such a tremendous effort to recreate a mirror image of the stars on the ground? Why would they do that? Unless they wanted to contact the extraterrestrial god who had originally given them the information.
Pleiades was not only important to the Maya, it was also important to Native Americans. The Cherokee, for example, the Hopi, believed that they descended from star beings that came from the Pleiades star cluster. According to scholars, the Maya believed that powerful gods descended to Earth from the stars, including a feathered serpent known as Kukulkan.
According to Mayan legend, Kukulkan was the winged serpent, a serpent god who could fly. Kukulkan by the Maya is depicted in a number of ways. Sometimes he is human, sometimes he's a serpent. Sometimes we see him emanating from a serpent's head. We know that there's no way that a human being can emerge from a physical serpent. So the serpent must stand for something else, either construction or a device. Now, because we know Kukulkan is a deity, we also definitely need to consider that this device is somehow a ship, and Kukulkan emerges from within the confines of the ship to the outside world and reveals himself as a deity to the people.
Kukulkan was the creator of all life, who led the Maya into an age of scientific advancement and advancement of art and architecture. According to ancient Maya mythology, Kukulkan left the people and said he would return one day. And many scholars believe
this one
the
better,
beginning of the Maya calendar on December 21st this year
Oh,
will mark the return of Kukulkan. Miles north of Tikal, in the ancient Maya city of Chichen Itza, stands a uniquely designed pyramid built by the Maya to honor Kukulkan. Unlike most of the pyramids all around the world, the platform pyramid we can find at Chichen Itza is not directed in a north-south or east-west direction, but it's a little bit off. There's a specific reason for that, and that is during the spring and fall equinox, a shadow play is cast upon the side of the pyramid, signifying the descent of Kukulkan, the extraterrestrial descending from the sky, staying a while on Earth, and then ascending towards the heavens. What we have here is an example of living mythology.
that's really cool.
So my question is, what did they mean when they talked about this deity that descended from the sky? Why was it so important to the
Is
Maya
somebody just here?
to build such
Huh?
an elaborate
Somebody just here?
temple to honor
Oh, I thought I
Kukulkan?
heard you talking or something.
Did they really expect this serpent god to ascend to the heavens and then descend to earth?
Just talking to everybody, telling them to follow Mika.
Something
Oh.
even more incredible. Something not this world.
Maybe talking to Zeus, maybe.
If you look up in the air
Okay.
today and you watch a plane, it leaves behind this plume of smoke as it travels across the sky, and you've got the snake's tail wiggling out its backside. So if you look at it from that perspective, that can be described as a flying snake. And in my opinion, that was nothing else but a description of some type of an extraterrestrial craft that descended from the sky, out of which the gods, lowercase g, emerged and taught them in various disciplines. And the message is clear. God Kukulkan descended to the humans. He was a certain time among the humans. He was the teacher of the humans, and then he disappeared again, but with the promise to return one day to the humans. Is it really possible, as some ancient astronaut theorists suggest, that Kukulkan was in fact a flying spacecraft, engineered and piloted by otherworldly visitors? And if so, could this explain the frequent depictions of this ancient Mayan god as having a face appearing out of a serpent's head, similar to that of a pilot operating a vehicle? According to
I mean,
researchers,
it looks similar.
clues to the connection between the Maya and otherworldly beings can also be found in the Mayan manuscript known as the Popol Vuh, meaning the Book of the People. It is a collection of the only known Maya oral histories still surviving. Translated and written in the mid-16th century, this book encompasses a range of subjects, including Mayan creation myths.
The Popol Vuh begins with nothing. There's nothing there. There's a watery surface, but there's no sky, there's no land. The gods emerge out of this water.
All right, I'm gonna try another restart here, and if that don't go nowhere,
And the gods decide to
I'm gonna
make
go ahead and take off. Go to
right out of one of the most seemingly
Yeah, that's right.
inhospitable places for civilization to sprout.
I'm back to the restart. I'll be
Culture
right back.
to create this collection of independent city-states and build pyramids. They develop a written language and a mathematical system. They grow up into this forest there, reaching populations into the multi-millions.
In the Popol Vuh, it clearly states that life was brought here by the gods, and that those gods came from outer space. It doesn't say that they came from inner Earth. It also doesn't say that they came from another continent or another land. But it states specifically that they descended from the sky and essentially brought knowledge to planet Earth.
What you have in the Popol Vuh is very much like a manual. It's something what you want to give to the people and say, this is what we, our ancestors, have decided.
Do you want to try to go on my page?
No, I'm back live already.
Keep in mind for the next few
I'm back.
centuries, up until the moment in time when the gods return.
We can try your page after.
Is it really possible, as ancient astronaut theorists believe, that the Maya god Kukulkan was an extraterrestrial entity, one that is destined to return one day from the stars? And if so, does it suggest that there may be truth to another Mayan legend, one that predicts that our time on Earth may be running out?
Yeah. It's been running out since we were born. So
Number 6
you can say anything dramatically and get people scared.
are carved a series of ancient Mayan hieroglyphs that, according to scholars,
According to scholars, the sun may not rise tomorrow.
December 21st, 2012.
Start thinking this there.
This is a
Well,
long
technically,
book
the sun doesn't
that
rise at
talks
all. It's
about
just us
the lifetime of a particular
spinning
king.
around.
But at the end of it, goes forward into the future, takes this big leap from the 600s AD up to 2012. Definitely says Borahau, 8 Konkin, arriving the 13th Baktun or 400-year period. But then there are only 3 glyphs, and they are eroded and broken partially.
Some scholars believe that the eroded glyphs on Monument 6 suggest that Olayacti, a god similar to Kukulkan,
Bingo.
will return at the end of the Mayan calendar. The Maya specialists can read it. Will descend from heaven, God Bolon Yokte. Bolon Yokte was one of the Maya gods who was present with the creation of man. So they say, will descend, God Bolon Yokte. So some gods, some extraterrestrials were expected to return. And definitely some of the gods will return. There's absolutely no doubt. Who was this Bolon Yokte?
Welcome in.
According to the documents that have survived, and they're only fragmentary, he was always described as someone with great powers who had the capacity of flight and who had incredible knowledge about the universe.
The god Bolon Yokte is not a very well understood god. Sometimes he's associated with texts that talk about the beginning of creation back in 3114 BC, and we see him in some contexts that seem to be connected with war.
Bolon Yokte was also described as being very tall and very shiny, glowing. Is it possible that what we have here is a description of an ancient alien?
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
I think he's the depiction of an ancient alien. What do you think?
But while there's much mystery surrounding the legend of Bolon Yokte,
He's like, give me a natural cut.
Maya believed this entity had
Give me a natural cut my ancestors would be proud of.
thousands of years in the past. There is another reference to Bolon Yokte at Palenque in Temple 14.
Make sure you out.
Clearly stated that Bolon Yokte appeared on Earth over 900,000 years ago. Why would anyone in their right mind record a date that goes back over 900,000 years ago? Well, something happened, something very significant, and according to the ancient text, is when Boanyokte descended to Earth from the sky. Similar stories suggesting that the Maya were in some way connected to otherworldly beings can be found in an ancient Mayan text known as the Chilam Balam, a collection of oral histories passed down through the ages.
The Chilam Balam books were written between the 16th and the 18th centuries. When the Spanish conquerors were already there, first the Spanish arrived. They found hundreds of Maya writings. They destroyed them all. But then some of the priests escaped and they start to write up their old knowledge. That's the reason how the Chilam Balam books came to existence.
The name Chilam Balam is actually the name for a priesthood who were kind of the historians of communities in the Yucatan. But we have this collection of books that we call the Chilam Balam. These are the books in which we find this information about how the Maya believed that what's happened before will happen again. In the opinion of the people that write the Chilam Balams, they believe them to be very accurate. The Chilam Balam talks about these 20-year periods. In this 20-year period, you could see it was a bad time for us. We can expect negative things to befall us. And of course, one of the most negative and bad luck times they have is the arrival of the Spanish. And they point to that as, see clearly in the cycles of time, we could almost predict that this calamity was bound to happen to us at this time.
In the Chilam Balam, it states that the god Boanyokte will someday return and battle the deities of heaven in an epic war of good versus evil.
Each age for the Mayans was clearly defined, and it was defined by the gods returning. And so what we have today, or in the near future, is the imminent arrival, according to the Mayan tradition, of these deities.
This prediction of a final apocalyptic battle between good and evil, as described in the Chilam Balam, can also be found in the Christian Bible's book of Revelation. It is interesting that you look into the last book of the Bible. It talks about some great war in heaven between the Archangel Michael and the great dragon. Is there some last great war in heaven that occurs at this time? If the Mayan prophecy about the return of Boanyokte is true, might there really be a so-called battle between good and evil? One that will result in the annihilation of all mankind. But how? Planet Earth. Although there are many theories about its age and origin, one fact is certain. Our planet is billions of years old, and mankind's existence on its surface is relatively recent and fragile. Throughout history, the biggest threat to mankind has come in the form of natural disasters. But does that mean the world will end on December 21st, 2012?
Probably.
Recent evidence has shown that the ancient Mayans possessed knowledge about
That's the end right there.
and its fate that we are only just beginning to understand.
According to the Mayans, the world has already ended 4 times before this coming cataclysm. It ended before in fire and in ice and in water. This next cataclysm could be a combination of all that, or even something completely different.
Not only did the Mayans know our place in the universe, but they also knew how old the universe was. Mayans put the date of the universe at 16.4 billion years. Modern science today puts it at about 14 and a half, maybe 15, and yet the better our technology gets, the more we begin to realize that the Mayans were correct. Is it possible then, as the Mayans predicted, that the Earth and Sun will align with a black hole on December 21st, 2012? And if so, will such a cosmic event have dire consequences for our world?
The Tibetans believe that the sun is a lens, that it activates and amplifies things behind it or things coming from it. If that's the case, on December 21st, you have an energy that's coming from the center of the galaxy, that comes from the dark rift, that comes from the womb of the galaxy, if you will, that is now going to be amplified by the sun, that is going to have some kind of effect on humanity. I think the Mayans had an understanding of celestial mechanics. They understood that the sun was going to change, and so my belief is that something will happen with the sun. Well, we know in past experiences, solar flares can interfere with electronic equipment. We can see the power grid go down, for example. We can see major things change in modern society that pretty much would cripple us. But if we're talking about losing that ability for an extended period of time, I dare say we'd be talking about a scenario that would result in major changes and quite possibly some very ill effects.
Some researchers speculate that the galactic alignment might change or even reverse how the Earth spins on its axis by altering its magnetic field.
A sign of the magnetic field changing quickly would mean something has to happen dramatically to the angular momentum of the stuff inside the Earth, which might also mean something happens drastically to the spin of the Earth itself. And once you change the rotation of the Earth, you do have a chance of causing huge effects. It's like having a whole bunch of massive earthquakes at the same time. We talk about a magnitude 7 or a magnitude 8 or magnitude 9 earthquake as being destructive beyond imagination. But what would a magnitude 12 or magnitude 20 earthquake do? Could it replace the land with the sea and the sea with the land? We're talking about events that we've never experienced before. So some of these changes that people are talking about that could occur could be life-changing or they could be life-ending.
Will the Earth really be affected by some strange, powerful astronomical alignment? One that will have profound consequences for all of us. And if so, might those consequences come in the form of death and destruction? Or might there be another, perhaps more positive outcome?
The end of the Mayan long count could mean some doomsday for planet Earth, or on the other hand, perhaps it is a return of the extraterrestrial gods, as the Mayans believed. It's hard to know the future, what's going to happen at the end of 2012, but it seems that perhaps the Mayans had some glimpse into the future that we have yet to find out.
We are living in a time, specifically in culture, which really doesn't address the ancient alien theory that we are not alone. It is indeed going to come for a global village as a complete revelation that we are not alone. And that is really, I think, a gift from the Mayans when it comes to 2012.
It is absolutely correct that a calendar round is about to end, but that does not signify the end of the world. In fact, the only thing it signifies is the beginning of another calendar round, of another period in time.
Could the Mayan doomsday prophecies really come true? Will December 21st, 2012 signal the end of civilization as we know it? Or are the dire predictions nothing more than a myth, a misinterpretation of an even greater truth? Perhaps what awaits us is not the end of our world, but a new beginning. One that will reveal the celestial origins of man. Prehistoric prehistoric sculptures of reptilian beings.
Something significant happened, something that would alter our understanding of human history.
Weird, elongated skulls, nearly 4,000 years old.
It would seem that those elongated skulls were people who were somehow half alien, half human.
And ancient myths of small gray beings with large
Oh,
heads
shit.
and black oval eyes.
Okay.
There have been descriptions of gray beings going back
Sorry if you don't like ancient
thousands
aliens.
of years.
All around the planet, ancient evidence points to strange otherworldly visitors. This data suggests, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that physical extraterrestrials visited Earth in the remote past. Millions of people around the world believe we have been visited in the past by extraterrestrial beings. What if it were true? Did ancient aliens really help to shape our history? And if so, might science finally reveal the truth behind the mystery of the graves?
See you at your table?
Mm-hmm.
Roswell, New Mexico, July 3rd, 1947. A flash of light streaks across the sky and crashes in the desert near the Roswell Army Airfield. Rancher Matt Brazel hears the impact and investigates the next morning. He reports what he finds to authorities.
The field of debris was like nothing ever seen before. And the rancher reported finding what looked like initially foil-like material that, when it was scooped up and collected, it had these strange properties like memory metal. In other words, it would resume its original shape when it was crumpled up, if you like. This sort of suggested the possibility that something very strange had come down at Roswell.
And they find 5 alien bodies. Alien because they do not look human. Using hermetically sealed, smaller coffin-sized boxes, these bodies were transported and looked at, medically analyzed, and then shipped off to various areas of classified research.
They're described as the classical gray, 3.5, 4 feet tall, black wraparound
Okay, I let this
eyes,
dry a bit.
slits for a mouth, long arms, depending on which description, between 3 and 5 fingers.
At first, U.S. military personnel announced that they had recovered debris from an unknown spacecraft. But later, they reversed themselves.
Because 24 hours later, the military completely changed its story and said, sorry, we made a big mistake, it was just a weather balloon. But of course, no statement was made as to how trained military personnel could tell the difference between a flying saucer and a weather balloon.
But why did the military change their story? Was it because they found something else? Something otherworldly, as ancient astronaut theorists believe?
People who claim to have been associated with the crash at Roswell claim that there were several alien bodies recovered. It's very strange that they would talk about beings. We also know that the mortician was called and that they were asked to come up with small little caskets. Something obviously happened at Roswell. What was it exactly? We really don't know, but I think it was out of this world.
This is kind of the core of the Roswell legend. Our government, which is in a democracy supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people, is covering this up. The second thing that is implicit in this legend is, of course, that extraterrestrials have been visiting the Earth.
But if alien beings did in fact crash at Roswell, who are they? And what do they want? September 19th, 1961. According to news accounts, Betty and Barney Hill were driving through New Hampshire late at night when a large flying saucer rapidly approached them and then hovered over their car. They saw strange figures through the windows of the craft. And mysteriously, the couple
That's funny. I was about to bring that up.
complete memory loss.
Yeah, I haven't finished it.
Pulled it out of that box.
That other one needs to dry. My
No one really
wings.
knows to say what Betty and Barney Hill saw. However, the details of their case do reflect on various other versions of alien abduction. I say alien abduction
Oh, it's a
because some of the
continuation, huh?
pieces of information that they discuss, the loss of time, seeing beings that actually came out of this craft and associated and interacted with them, and they weren't human.
Ultimately, under hypnosis, they recall being brought out of the car and taken aboard the ship. That it was a legitimate abduction, and that Betty pleaded with her captors, if you will, that not to harm her. As she laid on this table and experiments were done on her, like a needle being inserted into her stomach. Barney relates a number of skin samples and sperm being taken from him.
The beings described by Betty and Barney Hill in the classic case of a grave. Now, there are variations to size and dimensions of these beings, but they all seem to have the same characteristics. Slim, skindly bodies, large oval heads, large oversized eyes. The Hills were the first documented case of an alien abduction in modern time, but it is not the last. Since the 1960s, there have been many more similar reports, including that of Kim Carlsberg, a commercial photographer, who in 1988 claimed to have been abducted by gray aliens in the middle of the night.
We were living on the beach in Pacific Palisades, and I walked up to the window and I saw this light on the horizon that I'd never seen before. And I've lived on the beach my whole life, and it wasn't a boat, and it wasn't a star. I just watched this craft. The next thing I knew, it jetted into the stars and disappeared. And I went to bed as usual. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was not in my bed any longer. I was naked and I was paralyzed. The beings I saw were about 3.5 feet tall. They were naked. They were off-white. They were not gray. They had huge heads, huge wrap-around black eyes, tiny little bodies. There are many stories of graves abducting humans into their spaceships, and even of being inseminated with alien reproductive material and then conceiving human alien hybrid babies and having those fetuses removed from their bodies and then grown on the alien spaceships. In some cases, people report going back onto the spaceship and being able to see these hybrid offspring. I was being used for my DNA. They were creating hybrid children from my eggs, someone else's sperm, and combining it with their DNA and their sperm. I would be implanted with an alien fetus, and they would leave the fetus in my body for a few months. Then they would bring me back again later, and then they would remove it. It was horrific. It was terrifying.
You can't have so many people saying that they've been abducted and not have some possibility of truth with that. I think it's happening. I don't know if it's a hybridization program for these ETs or whether they're trying to bring these hybrids back to this planet one day when the environment changes. But in my opinion, something very strange is happening to these people there's an overabundance of testimony from just too many people who say that they remember these types of creatures and having been taken by them. Yeah, I think the great make perfect sense. Now, the question is, where are they from?
So if you think about gray alien, a large head, small body, why are these the aliens that are so often projected? As a scientist, you really have sort of two sides that you like to think about. One is, why do we project them that way if, they're just our projection? And if they did really exist hypothetically, would intelligent life look radically different? And I think there the answer can be very much yes.
What can explain the similarity of the graves described by abduction victims? And why do recent descriptions match ancient depictions of so-called sky gods found all around the world? Might they be from the same race of otherworldly beings, as ancient astronaut theorists believe? Something can be said about a potential presence of grays in the remote past, because there are some figurines and some cave drawings that look like grays. There are some statues in ancient Sumeria, but we can also find cave drawings in Europe and, for example, in Australia, where the heads feature a triangular shape with the big almond eyes. Cave paintings in the Kimberley region of Australia, nearly 5,000 years old, could be among the earliest depictions of grays ever discovered. According to local legends, the carvings are of ancient spirits called the Wangina, who appeared during dream time to create the landscape and influence its inhabitants.
Really what you have there is a typical depiction of your gray alien being. The almond-shaped eyes, the almond-shaped heads, because quite often you find in rock art various strange creatures there, but not necessarily the grays. What you have in the Kimberley caves, the depiction of the gray is really extraordinary.
The Wangina were beings that descended from the sky and essentially jump-started civilization in and around Australia. In fact, the Aboriginals of today still pray to those beings. And to me, that is significant because what we have here is what I refer to as living mythology. That these mythologies have been kept alive over thousands of years. And to me, there is no coincidence in that.
You got one subscriber.
Might aliens,
Thanks, guys.
known as the Greys, really have been visiting Earth for thousands of years, as ancient astronaut theorists believe? Perhaps the answer can be found, not in the stars, but in man's earliest depictions of sky gods. Iraq, a region once known as Mesopotamia. Located on the east bank of the Tigris River, opposite the modern city of Mosul, lie the remains of the ancient city of Nineveh. Here, in 1849, 6,000-year-old Sumerian clay tablets were discovered that contained the earliest known form of written records. Interpretations of the accounts engraved on the tablets speak of an alien race called the Anunnaki, who settled in Sumer and bred with humans. The Anunnaki, which comes from Sumer, our modern-day Iraq, speak of gods that literally created us, humans, in their image and after their likeness. So when we go back to some of these Sumerian epics and various texts that go back thousands of years, the Anunnaki are a great resource of realizing these were actual beings that existed. And the Anunnaki even worked with or had some relationship with the Greys.
With the Anunnaki, what Anu really is a description of the fact that they're linked with their created deities. And in this case, Anu is linked with the constellation of Orion, very specifically saying that these creatures come from somewhere out there in the universe and have come
rumors that there was a number of different alien species that were coming to this planet. You have the smaller, big-headed gray aliens. You have the very tall, literal giants that were sometimes called the Anunnaki. We have other alien species that allegedly look almost identical to us.
In the American Southwest, the ancestors of the native Hopi Indians believed in deities from other worlds and created illustrations of them on canyon walls. But in some cases, researchers believe the depictions of sky gods match modern-day descriptions of the Greys.
In Hopi culture, there are spirits called Kachina that represent really beings from the other world. They really are a mixture of nature spirits, earth spirits. Some of them also really take on almost aspects of very powerful ancestors or gods. These are otherworldly creatures.
The translation for the word Kachina is very simple. It means teacher. The Kachina were not a part of the spiritual world, but they were, in fact, a part of the physical world. They descended from the sky in what the Hopi referred to as fiery shields. They would touch down on Earth, spend time with human beings, teach them, give them knowledge, and then they would use the same quote-unquote shields to fly back into the sky.
Kachinas were physically living with them. And at some point it is said that the Kachinas took to the mountains, specifically the San Francisco Mountains outside of Flagstaff, and then later they disappeared.
The Kachinas in the Hopi culture are known as gods. And this term gods I use loosely because we now look at the information and wonder if they're possibly extraterrestrial.
You guys.
Now what's interesting is this theme is replicated across many different cultures. The gods come here and find our human females attractive. So this is the same thing reported by the Hopi Indians.
But if gray aliens came to Earth in the distant past and mated with humans, where is the physical evidence of this union? Researchers point to numerous elongated humanoid skulls found on several continents. Might such remains actually be of a hybrid species, part alien and part human, as ancient astronaut theorists believe?
One of the things that you see around the pyramids here on coastal Peru is that they're associated with these skulls. It would seem that those elongated skulls were half alien, half human. And in fact, some of the recent DNA testing that's been done here in Peru is indicating that these people are somehow half human and have some other race.
Well, this long skulls is a phenomenon which is worldwide. We found them in Central America, we found them in South America, you find them in Egypt. So I think in the very, very beginning, these extraterrestrials, they must have had longer heads than the normal human brain.
They're found all over the globe. And we have to wonder if this was some type of either lost, advanced civilization, or were these actually extraterrestrials visiting various cultures and having similar influences? Maybe some of these elongated skulls are actually artifacts to say beings existed at one time that ancient man considered gods.
And it's once again cross-cultural. We find it specifically at a very brief period of time in ancient Egypt under Akhenaten, and specifically in Peru, an awful lot of excavations are happening where you see strange skulls being uncovered. Specifically these skulls, which are really larger than they should be.
These skulls are like super long.
Very straightforward that somehow they go through this officially
Welcome
listed
in.
with alligator skulls.
I'm just listening. I can't really see
Yeah,
it.
they got elongated skulls.
Oh yeah, I see them now.
Like aliens.
Elongated skulls, some estimated to be over 4,000 years old, really the evidence of the existence of great aliens in the
coneheads.
ancient past. And if so, could this be proof
From France.
alien civilizations?
We must consume mammal
For
flesh.
ancient astronaut theorists,
You will
the
enjoy
answer
it.
on both counts is a categorical yes.
You must. Narco like I go.
Origin evidence can be found, not here on Earth, but on the surface of a nearby planet.
You guys gotta follow Mika on her painting channel. Well, it's a gardening channel, really. But you gotta change it.
July 31st,
Actually, just add the painting on it.
I am. That garden's about to come in
NASA's
on more.
Phoenix lander successfully touches down on the Martian surface. And while searching for evidence of microbial life, the robotic
It'll be the
spacecraft
painting and gardening
finds trace amounts of water
channel.
underneath the
And
surface.
eventually, you may be painting in the
The
garden.
discovery of an element so
Right.
essential to life raises speculation that Mars may have been home to alien life forms in the distant past.
Now, when we start scouring the solar system for evidence of an alien species, what we're really beginning to find out is that Mars is by far the best candidate.
Given that our local solar system already has an example of 2 planets, one that clearly has life because we're here,
A little bit of light.
and then one like Mars that could have hadn't started, and then just because it was in the wrong place or not quite right, it didn't keep going. Gives hope that there really is more life elsewhere in the universe.
Mars has a special place in our consciousness and our folklore, going back to the time of really the ancient Greeks. And this becomes more important as we get closer to the end of the 19th century, where you have reliable astronomy, powerful telescopes that can see, for example, some of what are called canals on the planet Mars. People have begun to imagine a civilization that perhaps existed long ago on Mars, created these canals for transportation or for other reasons, but then something cataclysmic happened. That possibility of life on that planet was destroyed, and so the denizens had to flee and go somewhere else.
Is it
That's
possible that
interesting.
Mars was
Here.
once a fertile planet like the Earth? And if so, might it have been home to a species of beings we call the Greys,
Maybe.
as some ancient astronaut theorists believe?
All mythologies
It's a good possibility.
to be the planet of war. So you cannot exclude that sometime in the past, this could be 10,000 or 100,000 of years ago, Mars had the civilization. And the civilization destroyed itself, whatever the
Mars had a civilization
some of
until Darth Vader showed up.
the situation escaped to Earth.
Our ancestors were also convinced that there was life on Mars. Mars has always been singled out as this cosmic twin of planet Earth. It's almost as if it's somehow part of our DNA that somehow tells us we need to go to Mars. And if we did have a brother at one point, the likely chance is that we're going to find evidence of this brother on Mars. Everything which we know about
Brother.
non-human life, contact in the past or in more recent years, it is somewhat humanoid. And so, to find out that this species would have a base on Mars is, I think, very much in the line of expectation.
Any type of species on Mars today would probably be subterranean. Now, this is an interesting piece for the idea that the Greys occupy Mars. We know that here on Earth, we do see evidence of subterranean activity. Maybe the Greys actually came from Mars.
But if Mars might have once sustained life, and possibly intelligent beings, might other more distant planets in the universe also have supported life, and perhaps even a thriving civilization? December 5th, 2011. Scientists using NASA's Kepler Space Telescope confirmed that they have found 2 planets orbiting a distant sun-like star that are in a narrow range of space within their solar system called the habitable zone. which a planet might have water and perhaps sustain life.
So there's been the recent announcements of the Kepler-B and new planets, and it's been a very exciting period for astronomy. Our telescopes have gotten powerful enough to finally find planets around other suns. We have them around ours. Why would we be unique?
Kepler 22b is an example. 2.5 times the size of Earth, rotates on a 290-day orbit, very similar to our own properties here on Earth. Potentially the graves or various other aliens that have been visiting us come from other worlds that
What?
we're now finally starting to locate.
And so what we're having here is really
Welcome in.
science, NASA in this case, has really made a lunge forward.
We are still doing bingo for Betty.
We've actually out, whereby ancient alien theory is no longer a theory, but it's really
Sticky
closer
stuff.
and closer and closer to evidence, if not proof.
I think it's very possible that Kepler will find more and more planets, some Earth-like. They've already come up with a theory that there are billions of planets in our galaxy now. Some of them are bound to have intelligent life.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know.
If gray aliens
Absolutely.
did originate from habitable planets like Kepler 22b, is there evidence that their intergalactic quest led them to Earth? According to ancient astronaut theorists,
Maybe. You got to put yourself in extraterrestrial shoes. If you had the power to travel all around the universe to other planets, then you found life on that planet, what would you do?
Mate with
Or
it.
actually, let's mate with them. I would say the way our leaders are, we'd probably go destroy the planet.
Extraterrestrial contact took place.
We'd be like, you know what? This planet's got some good stuff on it. We want it.
According to researchers, Teotihuacan's three main pyramids were built in precise alignment with the three bright stars of the Orion constellation.
What?
And
Oh, I heard that. I've heard that
the
before.
smaller structures along the Broad Avenue were positioned to represent our solar system.
Teotihuacan has a main road orientated north-south. And on this main road, you have different buildings, mostly pyramids. Every building has the position of one planet in our solar system. The distances between
She needs 50 subscribers until she can go live on her phone.
in our solar system, including asteroid belt. You see, in our solar system, we have in the center the sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars.
What did you say, Dan?
Between
Here,
Mars and
my
Jupiter
phone.
is the asteroid belt. Then comes Uranus,
Over there?
Neptune, Pluto,
I don't know
etc.
where that is.
Yeah, it's tugged up.
The
Are you good?
structures of this
You see it?
would not have known
Yeah.
this. Where is the
It's just Detroit calling.
Oh.
When you look at pyramids
And you're only at
themselves,
3%.
they
So.
are a special geometric.
I thought I had it plugged in. I didn't have it plugged in this whole time.
In fact, the locations of many of these pyramids could also be mapped out into geometric grid patterns
It's charging.
on the Earth. And you have to think that whoever is guiding such
not
a
charging very good.
precise network
I got your
of
food.
pyramids
It's done.
must have been a very advanced culture, probably extraterrestrials.
These are strange structures, and if you look at them, you just say, number one, how did they build this with primitive tools, if they had tools at all? I think there's one of two things going on here on this planet. Either Earth is very old and life started much earlier, and human life started millions of years before we think
I'm gonna do a little incentive with the boys.
there was some kind of extraterrestrial help.
I'm gonna let them. Let's make this a little channel for them,
Neolithic monuments and
and
information
then go live from in their bedroom.
around the globe that seem
I
to
don't
be coming
understand why
from
we
some
would
kind
be
of
doing
outside
that. Why
source.
would we be
It
doing
goes
that?
back thousands of years.
Why would we
We
be
have
doing that?
artifacts, for instance, in
Oh,
random
'cause
places
They'll
like
keep have them keep their room cleaner.
actual reliefs that look like
Maybe.
aliens. Sumer, modern day Iraq, we find figurines, little statues. They look like great aliens. The evidence that we see here is that the grays do exist. Does the discovery of distant, possibly life-sustaining planets add credence to the evidence of gray aliens in our recent and prehistoric past, as ancient astronaut theorists believe. Perhaps further evidence can be found in ancient stone carvings of strange creatures known as the reptilians. Chichen Itza, Mexico. Vijayanagar, India. And the Forbidden City in China. All across the ancient world are numerous pyramids and temples dedicated to what the ancient inhabitants referred to as sky gods. But is it possible, as some ancient astronaut theorists contend, that these so-called sky gods were in fact another form of gray alien?
What?
Known as the reptilians.
All throughout Central and South America, people worship this winged serpent. But it gets even better, because halfway around the world, in ancient India, we find the stories of flying snakes again.
Welcome in.
Very aware that snakes cannot.
All right, we gotta share it.
However, whatever it was that they saw flying around the sky could best be described
Hey,
as
girls.
a winged serpent.
Whenever creatures are being encountered, we are going to look towards the animal kingdom to find comparisons with what we are seeing. And basically what that suggests is really that the creature looks like us, but also has some
All right,
reptilian
Jessica, what number do you want here?
So when we're looking at creatures in modern UFO mythology, specifically
Oh, I see it. I did not even notice that.
interbreeding between greys and reptiles.
Some researchers believe that before settling on primates, great aliens may have viewed reptiles as Earth's dominant life form, one they could exploit for reproductive purposes. If so, might the Greys have combined their genes with the DNA of reptiles to create hybrid reptilian creatures that for a while coexisted with early hominids on Earth? And might this explain the numerous ancient depictions of reptilian beings?
Mm-hmm.
In ancient India, we have the Naga, half man, half snake.
Gotcha.
It was allegedly a creation by the god Vishnu or Krishna. And who were these gods? According to the ancient alien theory, the gods were nothing else but genetic products
Well, thank you for the
of
share.
extraterrestrials.
Shanti are an interesting
Is she
subset
on
of
share being?
Hopi
Yeah, we
tradition.
have one.
They are quite reptilian in nature as well, because they are a species which tend to go underground.
What are you doing right now, Zal?
In comparison to UFO folklore, we quite often find or hear that some of these entities prefer the underground or live in underground bases.
If you go back even to the biblical days, the description of Satan is somewhat reptilian. It's very possible he was a reptilian extraterrestrial, and that the human beings of the time just interpreted that as something from the heavens.
Yeah.
There are various reports in South America, even in Asia and China. We have this similar reference of
So let's get more people on this share bingo.
denoted as a dragon symbol. So there must have been some type of global influence that took place from a reptilian source.
In order to share, you have to get the share badge.
In ancient Chinese culture, we have 4 dragon kings, and they are the deities of the sea. And it is said that they had a
And each live is going to start over.
beneath the ocean. But it is not mythological.
Each live, this free share bingo is going to start over.
Somehow these weird
If you have shared out
with the early Chinese and hence we
and you want to play some of the bingo, just let me know in the comments
Not only do they
so I don't bypass it.
characteristics, but supposedly they can shapeshift. Actually become another type of form of a body, a human being. Alien versus human. Now, a lot of the
these things are hard for us to grasp and understand.
Hi, Carol.
How
you doing?
There are reports of these reptilian creatures having amazing abilities. Even
This
the
is
ability
yours,
to
baby.
change their shape.
I put it up high so I cool off a little bit.
Some researchers have also theorized that the reptilians may have battled hominids for domination of Earth,
Hominids.
resulting in the near extinction of the hybrid species and forcing survivors to go underground.
That's so cool.
It's clearly evident that ancient men were witnessing things, whether it be extraterrestrials visiting us,
Just tap that pin comment down below.
beings
Click on the link
maybe underground.
to Sunday Get in Line.
We don't know, but there are clear references of some type of advanced humanoid
Got you, Carol.
reptilian being that has influenced our cultures.
Doing 10. I'll do it.
Like such legends and depictions of reptilian serpents and dragons have been prehistoric man's way of documenting their encounters with natural hybrid creatures produced by gray aliens.
Which one did we close?
Ancient astronaut theorists believe.
What's the other one?
Perhaps the evidence may even show that we are more closely connected to the grays than ever imagined. Washington, D.C. The National Institute of Health.
Yeah,
Here
no,
in 1990, scientists
Oh, yeah, it was
began the
Granny's.
Human Genome Project to identify every gene in the human body and determine what makes up our
There you
DNA.
go.
This
Share out the
scientific
live.
breakthrough
Get a spot on the
may
bingo.
manipulate human evolution and alter the human race. But
Don't pass up on this opportunity or take advantage of one of our specials here. I took over the specials. And every 50 cents at one time is going to get you a ticket in our raffle. We got a woman's wallet here, and we have a man's wallet.
I want this to not be
Spindly body.
Can I focus this?
Yeah, you got to do is just watch on the laptop. What are you doing?
The answer is no.
How do I do it?
Just watch the laptop.
Okay.
That's real time. The laptop.
Sure. I said I wanted to focus it in, and you said all I have to do is watch the laptop. Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
I believe that extraterrestrials found on this planet a species that they were able to change the genetic code that would allow them to interact and secure the longevity of their species. We're the product of that. We're the genetic carrier, if you will. One of the reasons why they're still abducting us. That tweaking of the genetic code is still going on. The Greys are our space brothers. I don't think they're necessarily evil. We're an end to a means.
Yeah, all you got to do is watch it on the laptop and see where you like it at.
Okay. You sort of need two things to happen. One is the life form would have had to be carbon-based like us, presumably, because the chemistry has to work. The second thing is you would need basically the same genetic type structure. So you can imagine if there was another planet with fairly similar conditions that gave carbon-based life forms, what would evolve? There is a good likelihood that you would get species like us. And if they were close enough, then of course they could interbreed with humans on Earth.
Sorry, I'm moving this one over.
Why would they be creating a hybrid being? Is there something that's going to happen here on Earth?
I'll move it for you. I pretty much see what you want to do.
Maybe you won't be able to survive some type of solar activity or something that needs to genetically modify it so that we can still survive. Is it for our own good as humans, or are they doing it for their needs as aliens?
Do you want to pull out first? And then...
If gray aliens interbred with humans, might
There you
their
go.
biology and appearance
Yes.
be a reflection of their more advanced evolution as a species? And if so, might they provide a hint of what humans may look like in the distant future?
So hungry.
Even though Greys kind of look very
That one's
different
better.
to us, you know, the larger heads, the smaller bodies, the big black eyes. In terms of evolution, you need hands, you need fingers and thumbs.
Really good.
You need eyes, you need ears, you need a mouth, need to be able to communicate.
You need a mouth, you know. How you gonna eat without a mouth?
Really advance yourself as a civilization.
When you're a super technologically advanced race, you don't really need big muscles. You don't really need sex organs if you're being genetically engineered.
Well, we don't know if that's what's happening here, fellas.
Likely to function in the capacity that they do here. Super large head for
Share out the live. If you haven't shared yet, I will give you a spot on this free share bingo. And the winner will get 20 points. Are we doing any game?
I know I want one of the 1 points.
have telepathic capabilities that are beyond the capability of most humans.
Which one do you want to do?
It's up to you, just one of the 1 point.
That we are in their image. Sounds like the book of Genesis, doesn't it? But it's very possible that ETs who look like we do, or should I say, we look like they do,
Yeah, what?
did a little manipulation, genetically altered what was here on the planet, created the Adam and Eve, turned them into modern man, and then left for whatever reason. There is a missing link. The missing link is the
That one doesn't look very heavy.
They changed our genetic code eons ago. And through a process of evolution, you have the human development to the point where we're going into space. Our evolutionary process is a direct result
Can you pass me that
of
towel?
genetic manipulation by ET. But the alien species, such as the Greys,
That's what I believe, though. I believe that we're
star system hundreds
exactly what they're talking about here. We're genetically enhanced.
years away. Or might the Greys actually be
But they couldn't live on this planet because they can't breathe our air.
astronaut theorists suggest.
Well,
I think what we have is a whole shift in the imagination in the 20th and 21st century.
oh,
Alien race are actually beings from the future who are traveling in time to the present time, which is their past. And they have evolved into this strange, hairless, grayish, bug-eyed form.
I have to wonder if they're actually interdimensional. I say this because the evidence suggests they have the ability to hold space and time with their technology.
Once we're talking about interdimensional beings, and what we're finding is that today, ancient history and future, I think, are all the same. That also explains why there are so many time anomalies happening with these events.
So it's very possible that they actually come from a distant part of our future. Will
Give me a
we ever know
minute.
the truth about the Greys? What is the secret to their mysterious origin? And why, if they exist, do they appear to be so interested in our world? Are they here to study us? To communicate with us? Or are they really coming here to warn us of our future?
Doesn't think you're watching no more. Ooh. Which sucks. I'm trying to make some thick ones.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Volcanic eruptions. You will cover the sun for years. Devastating earthquakes and tsunamis.
Also, the extraterrestrials themselves are influencing some of these events.
Oh,
And
okay.
asteroids smashing the earth.
I didn't realize it's been so long.
Massive extinctions.
What you're seeing is that this is the on purpose.
Have the world's worst global disasters been the result of nature's fury? Or have they been triggered by more supernatural forces?
I don't think we can rule out the idea that this is the work of highly advanced technological aliens seeking to obliterate the
These
human
people never rule that out as a possibility. It don't matter what's going on.
Around the world believe we have been visited.
If I was an alien race and I was watching the stuff we do here,
What if it were true? Did ancient
you know, they're gonna justify it. Like, they're doing that shit to themselves anyway.
And could there be an extraterrestrial connection to some of the world's mega disasters?
Oh. Welcome in, Hazel.
Japan.
I gotta walk off here in a minute and go out and get the. Yeah, Mom was watching. I didn't even notice that.
Off the northeast coast,
She didn't say nothing.
a massive 8.9 magnitude earthquake.
Hey, Mama.
An explosive upheaval of the sea.
Go watch her paint channel on YouTube.
200 miles.
It's her painting and gardening channel.
Building shake violently.
It's paint right now. You watch both of them if you can.
Within half an hour of the earthquake, a powerful 30-foot tsunami strikes the northern coast of Japan and sweeps across the landscape, reaching 6 miles inland, destroying everything in its path. Local officials estimate that over 19,000 lives were lost in the rapidly rising tide.
Tsunamis are basically named for a giant sea wave that is fairly coherent, has a lot of energy, and will travel over a large distance. And it's really a matter of scale more than anything else. It's huge enough to cause huge amounts of damage when it hits the shore. These have to be generated by a large pulse of energy being put into the ocean. And the most common source of that is a massive earthquake under the ocean floor.
They're used to earthquakes in this part of the world. But the fact that they had such little time, they just couldn't get away from it. So you can be a very sophisticated, first world developed country. You can be a superpower and still have these kind of mega disasters come your way.
Yeah, that's crappy. Oh my god.
According to Japan's Kyoto News Agency, in the days following the devastation, thousands of UFOs were sighted over Japan. If true,
Okay,
what
that's
might this mean?
It's interesting to note that when the
What did you say,
tsunami
Ben?
occurred,
I said that looks
there
better.
was suddenly an increase of UFO sightings in that area of Japan. So you have to think, well, are the extraterrestrials particularly interested in what happens to us in certain catastrophes and life-changing events that are occurring on this planet? And
Welcome
the
in.
extraterrestrials themselves are influencing some of these events.
But is
Let's
it
share this live out.
possible, as ancient astronauts
If you haven't shared yet, share out in your to your public, and you get a share badge.
I think that was good. What do you think, babe?
I
No.
like
Located
it.
in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, it is the largest of the Greek islands. Here, in 365 AD, this once quiet province of
Mika is
Byzantine
actually
Empire
painting right now.
was destroyed by a
She's on her painting
devastating
channel.
underwater earthquake and subsequent
Right behind me.
tsunami.
So if you want to watch Mika paint,
According to Roman historians,
you can tune into that
the
channel.
tsunami also hit Alexandria, Egypt, and other
What time is
cities
it?
along the Mediterranean coast, causing great
Let's
destruction.
get down there with the boys.
How long you been on?
The pre-earthquake of 365 was one of the great natural
Hour.
disasters of the Mediterranean world. So this was an earthquake that was.
Oh, we're getting some shares, and there's some people here, so
So it was
We just stay on the.
yeah, I'll keep it on for a little bit.
And it raised the island.
I'll keep it on for a little bit.
11 meters.
You boys want to jump in on this?
Event.
Hit that pin comment below.
The ancient Greeks attributed
I also accept Zell.
Poseidon. According to Greek myths, Poseidon was known as the Earthshaker because of his power.
I got the Venmo, I got the Cash App.
Sea storms.
Those two are down
tidal
at
waves.
the bottom.
Ancient people would have
Zell
described
is your
natural
preference, and
disasters
you use Zell.
gods as a really logical answer.
Right now, my
Because
PayPal is
first
not
they answer deadly.
functional.
So their lives depend upon trying to appease or please gods who control those things.
They called me today. So sure, I would love to have a conversation with you.
There are caves today in Crete which we can visit, which are
I was pretty much saying
identified as
that
being the place where
there's a scammer that got me,
baby to an
and that we need to investigate this
So when
together.
you find that something is happening in Crete in early Christian times, you really have to ask.
I was
whether
like,
this is
they're like, yeah, are you gonna make a payment now? I'm like, probably not. Someone stole that money from me, so we're gonna have to
What was happening at that time
further this investigation
early
a little more.
Christians were struggling
She said, okay, I
against the
understand.
resurgence of paganism,
You better understand.
and that tsunami came to destroy finally all the pagan religion in the area. And so modern Christianity became dominant.
But was the god Poseidon merely a figure of myth and legend? Or might this supernatural being have had a more otherworldly origin, as ancient astronaut theorists believe?
Poseidon was always depicted as holding this weapon or instrument, his trident. And this trident could cause earthquakes and tsunamis.
Alright, I'm gonna go to the boys.
The ocean
Okay, you want me to turn this
with
off?
his trident.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn this on.
You have to wonder
You're gonna turn this
if
on.
the trident
YouTube on?
wasn't
Mhm.
some
Okay.
And then I'll stay over there.
extraterrestrial
Alright,
device.
thank you for watching. Come back.